Dude, peace, peace. Give thanks and praise to the ancestors, first and foremost. Ashe to all the ancestors watching over us, protecting us, and guiding us. Ashe. All right, all right. All right, peace, family. Baragani, Islam, Salam, Hetepu, Rahubat. Okay, Gino Laco Ninani, Chief Noble Bandele, back again for another show tonight. Going live, all the way live, you know, and tonight's topic, man, we're going to get into some of this Moorish science, we're going to get into basically the sovereign citizen movement science. What does sovereign citizenship have anything to do with more science? Why, what's the purpose of it? Is it good? Is it bad? Should we use that? What is it doing for us? What is it doing for the community? You understand what I'm saying? What is it doing for the community? I'm gonna tell you what though. I'm gonna tell you why I'm talking about this. But before we get into that, if you guys watching this later, because it is like, you know, I'm getting started before anybody get in the room. But if you guys please like, share the video, subscribe to the channel, look at it, all the other videos. I deal with an array of different stuff, you know. But we are fundamentally becoming from a Moorish slash, I'm gonna say, Pan-Africanist, indigenous, all that mixed in. You understand what I'm saying? Because all of them really have components that are needed, you know. But what we talking about tonight is basically what's going on with the Moorish movement, the indigenous movement, as far as sovereignty, and sovereign citizenship. Should these Moors be using sovereign citizenship to facilitate their needs? And is there other ways? What would Noble Drew Ali been doing? Okay, what would Noble Ashe? What would Noble Drew Ali be doing based on this time? Okay, where would he be? Like, where would he be today if the movement had followed what he was doing? Because if we use the tools that was given to us in a certain manner, I mean, we wouldn't necessarily be using sovereign citizenship, okay? Because I'm gonna tell you like this: uh, Noble Drew Ali wasn't using sovereign citizenship at that time. You see, I don't, what Noble Drew Ali was doing was ahead of his curve as far as being able to make a religious corporation. Who has made a religious corporation up to that time? Nobody. Who would have even been understanding what a religious corporation was back in the 1920s? You know what I'm saying? I mean, most of us are just getting started with small businesses, DBAs, and all that now. I mean, he was doing this back in the 20s. So what I'm saying is, what was Noble Drew Ali doing, and how does that compare to what the sovereign citizens is doing? And I'm gonna tell you this: this is why the Moorish Science Temple of America don't deal with sovereign citizenship. And when I was younger, okay, when I was younger, y'all, I started dealing with the Moorish Science probably about 15, 20 years ago. But when I started doing this, I called the Moorish Science Temple when I first got, understanding it. I called them and was talking all this, sovereign stuff because um, my knowledge, I got into the sovereign citizenship understanding back in 2001. Phil Valentine. He did a whole breakdown of the Straw Man, the Wizard of Oz. You know what I'm saying? He did that whole breakdown, and I seen that, and from there I started studying on the other side. Well, my brother Rashid, he came on the Moorish side, and he's like, they doing this whoopty whoop out here in California where I'm from. They using the temple to have schools and driving around without no license and all that. And like I said, this was back in like 2000 and 2001, 2002. You know what I'm saying? But what I noticed though, when we got into this, okay, 20 years ago, is that I was all into the sovereign side, as if that was like the way out. You know what I'm saying? That was like the way out. And this, like I said, this ain't really. I'm not condoning sovereign citizenship or some principles all the way. You watch a lot of the principles. Okay, I got. You know how it is. They're here trying to stop me from breaking this down. You know what I'm saying? But for real though, this is what we be talking about. We were saying about the sovereign citizen history. See, the sovereign citizenship history, y'all, come out the South. The South was prejudiced, as if not all of them, but we know predominantly for real, the South is southern is racist than a mother. Okay, so they the ones that started the sovereign citizen movement. They the ones that used this as a rebellion against the North because they had lost that Southern War. So they used these tactics against them. Okay, that's a lot of the principles. The 14th Amendment, 13th, the 13th, 14th, 15th, and even the 16th Amendment are really like looked at as done under like liberals, or like under the North. Okay, the North was the one passing these bills. The South, after the Civil War, was in check. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't even vote really or nothing. So a lot of stuff was done then, and they in the South, man, y'all, they trying to stop me from dropping this knowledge. But okay, what I was saying before, I mean, like this reconnection thing. Sometimes YouTube be tripping, right? Okay, but what I was saying was, like I said, due to the South losing the war and being these tactics against the North, and a lot of those, because you got to think like the sovereign citizen movement is kind of linked into the patriot movement, okay, which is linked into the Confederacy, okay, who like a lot of them, they rock the Confederate flag, okay, so they know. So they know. See, when you let's be for real. When you see a bro rocking the Confederate flag, not a homie, not a melanated man. When you see the Albion, okay, rocking a Confederate flag, we know that's a sign of treason. But that's the principle of rebellion. It's a form of rebellion or treason against the United States for them to rock that flag. Okay, so they do it in as a rebellion against the North. Okay, they do it against the rebellion against the North. And y'all, please like and subscribe too. Okay, I'm trying to we gotta get this cracking. We gotta get this cracking. I'm talking about for real, like just jumping off, man. Like there's a lot of information out there. Okay, and like for real, like this sovereign citizen stuff is really, it's crazy, it's out of control, it's rebellious, which I get it, but I'm gonna tell you something, man. Like the sovereign citizen movement is being monitored and watched, and it's known. All the courts know about sovereign citizens. Okay, when you go in there on some sovereign citizen shit, they gonna recognize you, and they gonna say, "Oh, sovereign citizen, let's deal with him from that." We got a whole tactic of sovereign citizenship for them. So they look for tactics. They look for tactics. Period. So like when you go in there talking about anything about trust and all that, even though there's a point to it, but you really gotta have your stuff in order. For example, everybody wants this money from their straw through their accounts. You know what I'm saying? They want them through they want to get their money through the IRS, through the Treasury Department. That was the big thing. And some people was getting some money. But man, all them, like, you gotta see something investigated. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, is they are aware of what's going on. They had a guy, like, this was what sparked my conversation about this was a fake Instagram post from my homie Amin Ra, brother. He posted something. You know, he's got his own personal thoughts about the Moors, if you will. But he posted something about this guy who had killed somebody or whatnot, and how he was trying to say he was a Moor, or he was trying to say he was sovereign. Now, it was, like I said, it was a melanated brother. He said that he was sovereign. And so he went into this big thing about Moors. This is not real. This is not happening. You guys are not doing any of this. You know, you're more detrimental. You know what I'm saying? Whoop-de-whoop-de-whoop. And for real, I can understand what he means, because there are a lot of Moors out here squatting on housing. You know, they're trying to, you know, their whole thing is this land is our land. And I do get it. This you know, the land did belong to the native indigenous melanated people, which could be you, for sure. But in an occupied land, without the proper backing, it's like by yourself. It's usually as an individual that's going in there doing it. As an individual, they go in and they claim themselves to be this and that. Now, what Moors don't want to hear is that together to an agreement. The Moors are going to have to come together or form a strong enough group to muscle everybody into position, because I mean, without the numbers, going in there talking about you sovereign, Moorish national, is not going to get you out of out of jail, or maybe out of out of court. You're not going to get dismissed just because you're a Moorish national. And I say this because I get everybody calling, when we do the paperwork, they want to do it like, oh, I mean, they're in trouble. They be in jail. They be about to get locked up, or, they in trouble. And they want to come and try to be a national. Like being a Moorish national is going to stop the federal government or the local government, for that matter. It's going to stop them from doing anything. But if you had a strong governing body, whether it be a corporate entity or whatever, that entity could have in a better position to speak on behalf of its members, aka citizens. Okay, they would be able to speak on behalf of the nation. Now, let me get back to something. I want to get back to Noble Drew Ali because Noble Drew Ali should be the center. When we talking about Moors and sovereign citizenship, we should look at the measures that Noble Drew Ali put in place. Okay? That's what we should be looking at. And I'm saying that from the prospect of, look, the brother was coming from civics, right? He was coming from a civic demonstration. And then he later turned it into a religion. Okay? And so where I'm going with this is that he understood religious principles. He understood that religion, even in the Constitution, held strong ground. There are a lot of religious exemptions given to you when you are a church or a religious organization. Now, the problem was there was all these churches with these, you know, practicing Christianity, but it was given to them by their slave master, okay, right? It was given to them, handpicked and carved up and ordered for a slave. They handpicked it for a slave, gave them that version. So even though the church was a foundation of a lot of things, but it didn't go far enough. The church, the Christian church necessarily didn't go far enough to create that independent jurisdiction for melanated people. Okay, they try to use it purely on just spiritual purposes or religious purposes and maybe financial, of course, purposes. But when it came to actual legal legal power that the churches contained, they didn't use it. Okay, so that's why you got brothers that came out to mix like Noble Drew Ali and whatnot, and even like Marcus Garvey. You see what I'm saying? Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, and then later on Elijah Muhammad or Fard, I should say Fard Muhammad. Those people were like, okay, we got to take the religious thing and use that to our advantage. Okay, that's what we got away from. Now, no disrespecting any of them. I have to say that to the utmost. You know, the thing about it is that the Moorish Temple of America, in my opinion, it became very religious, like dogmatic religious, and it didn't grow civically. It stayed in a religious space that was for Christians still. Coming from a Christian mindset of church, it's like that kind of took over the temple. The Moorish Temple has become that. It didn't grow any further, especially religious, because when we're talking about like Noble Drew Ali, if you understood that Noble Drew Ali through religion, he could give out passports as a religious corporation. He could make you a kiss. Okay, he had the power to do that. That was through religion, bro. Religion, y'all. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we talking about sheiks and sheikas, like that. That's a title, a religious title. That's like being a minister, or what we would look at today as we advance. That's like a babalao. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we've got our own imams, babalao, different religious leaders that would be the religious foundation. Noble Drew Ali was the religious foundation. He realized that, hey, we can't do this all civically. We got to use religion as a blanket of protection. It gave him a blanket of protection, like similar to like the Catholic Church. And y'all done heard this before as far as that go. But doggone it, do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand that the power of religion has a lot of power, more so than you talking about just nationality, status? Okay, nationality and status is order of the day, and the nationality and status is to establish your cultural heritage and link you back to the families. Okay, that's what that was for. Now, that wasn't all that was worked up to be. Okay, because like I said, Noble Drew Ali set up this religious thing. So now, like, let's say marriage and all that stuff. See, as a religious cleric, you can do all that. You can marry somebody. You can do all the rites of passage under religion. Because what is it? The Religious Restoration Act. I think the Religious Reformation Act of 1993. Like, they had that. Like, this is a big deal for religious practices. Okay. So, like, let's just say your boy TD Jakes, aka TD Snakes, whatever y'all want to call him. Like, he got this mega church. Okay. He got a lot of power as a Christian. But one thing that's got him screwed up is that 501c3. He take a lot of money from that 501c3, okay? But nonetheless, somebody like him with that kind of power and money has a lot of influence, because being a minister of a religious organization, it deems you a lot of power. It, like, he moves around religious on religious principles. So, like, let's say he gets stopped by an officer. Okay, let's just say he gets stopped by an officer. I mean, like, the officer really gonna have real good reason to bring him in. Okay, he's not gonna bring him in on no dumb. Okay, because he holds a certain position religiously, and if he's working in his religious capacity, that is in jurisdiction, if you will, because that, you gotta understand, religion is a jurisdiction. Okay, religion is a jurisdiction in itself, and that's when I hear the so-called, like I said, sovereign citizens. When I hear like sovereign citizens, and especially melanated people, man, like, what do melanated people got? Why are you sovereign citizen? Why are you using a sovereign citizen tactic? Sovereign tactics is used by the European or the Albion because they are fighting back against the system. But that don't mean just because they fighting against the system that they on the melanated side, because they look at, like, let's just say Trump. Okay, Trump, he was part of the Middle America. He not that he was part of it, but I'm saying he appealed to Middle America. Middle America, those are the ones that are like Timothy McVeigh. Like the Timothy McVeighs and all them, like, they was radical in that sense. They know that the government's up to stuff and this and that. Okay? Like, we all know. We understand that. But those like Timothy McVeigh and all them, aren't they racist? They don't look at melanated people as in the same. Because when you go, if you go back to 1776, like, they want to. Like, they patriots. These patriots, they want 1776. They want the good old days when things was good. When America was on top. When America had principles. But unfortunately, when America had those so-called principles, melanated people were on the lowest of the totem pole as far as even citizenship. They had no real rights. Okay, we understand that. Okay, Dred Scott case, period, point blank. Okay, so we didn't. There was no melanated people, except if you was a Native American. If you was called an Aboriginal or indigenous, so-called Indian, if you was one of them, you did afford some principal rights because you had treaties with them. But if you considered yourself Black, African, or whatnot, you didn't have any rights in 1776. So it's like, what are you doing trying to become a sovereign citizen when their principles date back to a time when they didn't look at you as equal? You know what I'm saying? Like, basically back in them times, it was just a known principle that those dark-skinned people were not citizens and they didn't have any rights. That was like a known principle. Everybody looked at it like that. Your presidents looked at it like that. Abraham Lincoln looked at that. He said that if he didn't have to free the slaves, he wouldn't free the slaves. But he got to do it. It's for political purpose. It's not because he sees them as equals, even though he thought that they were being treated very inhumane. And nonetheless, he still didn't see them having the principles and standing and being like. He still didn't think that you could go to court and get your and fight a case, And you got to think about this. Abraham Lincoln, he presented a Moor in court. So Abraham Lincoln knew the difference between a black and a Moor. He knew the difference already, or the black and the Native American. He was a lawyer. He represented those people in Illinois. Okay, go check that out. But the point is that these principles these principles of sovereign citizenship don't really all the way match up with more science. You know what I'm saying? It's not really more science. It's really something else, and that's why the Moorish Science Temple, they always like forget we don't they don't condone they we don't condone they don't condone what they call dirty Moors or Moors that are doing sovereign citizen. They not on that. And if you notice, the Moorish Science Temple of America is not talked about on the news. Like when they talk about dirty Moors, they always talk about these are some dirty Moors, but we got some Moorish Science Temple Americans who condone it, so they're not part of it. So they always separate the two because Moorish Science Temple don't play that. They're not on that. They're not on that, and it's good and it's bad. I mean, because you don't want to be part of that nonsense sometimes because sometimes a lot of them people is filing stuff. Man, I know, you know how many people I know that got locked up for trying to squat on a house? How many people I know locked up that squatted on a house? Okay, doing that stuff. And I know a brother out that was living in Cali that wasn't even squatting, but the guy that he got that house from to rent out, they didn't pay their bills. They hadn't paid the mortgage on it, and they still renting it out and getting money. And so when they wound up arresting the people living there and tried to blame them with sovereign citizens, just because they was Moors, just because they was Moors, they weren't even talking that stuff. It was a mistaken identity, if you will. The owner should be the one liable. So, you know, that whole thing about sovereign citizens can get you jammed up, man. You know, you got to be an adept student. Like, brother, man, all respect due to the elder. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not here to dispute everything that he's saying. You know what I'm saying? Like, but a lot of us, we take that knowledge that he get, not really understanding it fully, and then we go out here trying to do stuff. You know, and then we got my brothers over here. We got my brothers in the Pan African community, like talking down about the Moors. Like they out here practicing stuff, getting people jammed up, you know, going to jail because like it's not that's like that. The sovereign citizen movement is not like being sovereign, y'all. Being sovereign means that you are responsible for yourself. Okay, like I was telling the brother earlier, being sovereign is being able to do what the state do for yourself. That's what it means. Like this, because what's happened is most of us have become so dependent on the system that we weak, that we can't stand without the state. Okay? So being sovereign is one who can stand and do things on his own behalf. That doesn't mean that you can walk around and say, like, for example, you say, I'm married and I'm sovereign, so I ain't got to do nothing but say I'm married. You can't do that. What that means is, if I'm sovereign, that means that I am no longer a minor and that I have the ability to create a document and file it myself so that I can have documented proof of my claim. That's a sovereign. That's what a sovereign do. A sovereign don't run around here just doing whatever without any documentation. Okay? Like, you need to have an affidavit of live birth. You need to create your own certificate. And that's all through religion. Why you can do it, why you can get married without the state, is because you got the religious right to do it. And you doing it as part of your rites of passage. That's why you doing it. Not because of this and that, of your straw man and this and that. Look, they took our heritage. They took our birthright, man. They took our birthright. That's what you got to get back. When you talk about rites of passage and your religious rights, that's getting back your birthright. That's getting back your birthright. Okay, I say, y'all please like the video and subscribe. I'm just trying to look. We gotta build this up. I got knowledge, man. I'm gonna tell you like this. I'm gonna tell you like this. I've been studying since '93. I've been studying UCCs or whatever and that science since the early 2000s. Okay, so I mean, like, I'm not. I'm just saying, like, I've been around enough to see some things, to see kind of what's worked and what has not worked. Okay, but best believe one of the principles is being a Moor, and that's why as a Moor, as I begin to open up and understand, being a Moor is not necessarily sovereign citizenship. Okay, now does your status play a part? Yes, it does. I'm not saying that because your status claiming a Moor will tie you back into treaty law, because that was the main problem with blacks, is that they Dred Scott, technically we don't have law or no treaty that we got to respect from any black man. So I mean, he's saying that, but at the same time, the Treaty of Peace of Friendship is being used by Abraham Lincoln to get a Moor off, for a Moor to sue in court. So you got Dred Scott over here claiming to be black, and he go into court, and they like, look, you can't even do this. You don't have proper standing, boy. You a minor. You a minor, man. You don't have no rights. We never gave y'all rights. Even if you free, you can't come in here talking that talk because you're not a citizen. You can't use United States Constitution to get your point across. Understand? So he's Dred Scott saying that, and a year or two before Dred Scott in Illinois, Abraham Lincoln is representing a Moor and sued for defamation of his character, and he got paid off of it. He was able to represent himself in court. He was able to do that. So I understand what the principles of nationality or your birthright can do for you on that capacity. But what we try to do as a people in this country today, if we trying to be sovereign, we really got to look at going back to a religious, spiritual organization that would allow you the exemptions that you should get. Because, like I said, Noble Drew Ali was religious, so he was. Don't you think he was coming under religion to do a lot of stuff? Like Noble Drew Ali talked about the 14th Amendment and whatnot, and said how that it was we weren't 14th Amendment persons. So that right there is where I think a lot of the sovereign citizens take that and run with it, because the 14th Amendment, I understand the 14th Amendment as far as what it brought to America. The 14th Amendment is no joke. Let's not be fools about it. The 14th Amendment created a whole new breed of corporations under the 14th Amendment. That's facts. That's facts, okay? That the 14th Amendment was used more by corporations than it was ever used by any melanated people for freedom, for citizenship. Let's be clear about that. Because of that, the power of corporations really outgrew your regular citizen, because they had a lot of money and power behind it. Because like a corporation is a group of multiple people. You might have 8, 10 people under this one corporation, so it's got a lot more power behind it than your average person, like your singular entity. I'll say your singular entity don't have that power of a corporation. They don't have the money like the corporation, and they don't have the laws necessarily backing it like it does a corporation now. So yeah, a corporation was is powerful. Noble Drew Ali knew that. That's why he created a religious corporation back then. He saw the trend. He used what he used as far as Islam and whatnot to create a religious organization. You got to think about it. He was religious, okay? He brought his own religious book, the Circle 7 Quran, okay? And he set up temples. Any temple he set up was under his jurisdiction as a religious corporation. So when people say that the Noble Drew Ali was sovereign, what it was being a religious corporation, he was able to create a entity that was not like, let's say in Chicago, where the temple was, the main headquarters of all this was in Chicago, Illinois. So the main temple was in Chicago. So when you went into Chicago's temple number one, you was going into a religious corporate jurisdiction that was not necessarily part of Chicago, Illinois. Okay. So that made it almost like it was his own city. So the Moorish Temple was almost like his own city. Like, for example, a police officer wouldn't be able to go in there because he would be going into another city, if you will. Just like if a Chicago police officer was trying to go into Springfield, the city of Springfield or whatever, into another city, that those police officers only have jurisdiction in Chicago. Okay, it's similar to the Pope. The Pope. Now think about this. It's called Vatican what? Vatican City. Okay. Vatican City. And once you go into Vatican City, you're no longer in Rome. Okay? They got their own jurisdiction. They got their own security. They got their own money. Okay? They even got people who live there or reside in the city. Okay? The Pope is sovereign. That's because they created a religious corporation. And what's crazy is that they created a religious corporation a year or so after Noble Drew Ali created one. And I thought this was BS. I thought this was just more science dogma or religious talk, right? But actually I was watching a video about the church, and they said that they incorporated in 1929. And that kind of blew my mind that they had not incorporated until 1929. So even though the Catholic Church, as much power as they yielded in for 1,000 years before, it was until 1929 they incorporated in Chicago or Illinois. That's what's crazy. Okay, let's keep it a buck. That's crazy, right? So the fact that they use what's that ecclesiastical law? They use ecclesiastical law. What is that? That's religious law. Religious law can be used in the public. Don't you know that? The Catholic Church, and that's what they do. They use religious law. That's why Jews use religious laws. You don't hear, as much stuff as they go through, you don't hear the Jews talking about they sovereign citizens. You understand what I'm saying? You don't hear them talking about that. You don't hear the Catholics talking about sovereign citizenship. You understand what I'm saying? You gotta go on in there, man. Go to bed. I'm on live. Go to bed. Go to bed. Get something tomorrow morning. It's too late. Go on back to bed. I'm live. I'm all the way live. Peace. But anyway, like I said, you don't hear the Jews or none of them talking about they sovereign citizens. Really, the main sovereign citizenship is the middle American whites. And blacks. I call them black. I'm calling you black. Those blacks that follow behind them, doing what they do. Like y'all out here trying to find UCCs to get um, transmitting utilities, man. You know what I'm saying? Like y'all out here trying to get transmitting utilities and become a corporation yourself because you know that your straw man is a fictitious entity and that it is a trust behind it, and so you trying to get into that, tap into that cash. But you got this is what I gotta tell y'all, and I want this to make sense. Y'all chime in, man. Don't you know what I'm saying? If y'all can chime in, unless my chat is off, but y'all chime in on this, man, if y'all want to. If you got any Moors out there or whatever, y'all tell me this. If the if we are trust, which I believe that we are a trust, like the name, all that, the birth certificate is created into a trust. Now, from what I understand, the trust once, like if I made a trust, nobody outside of that I didn't want part of that could access my trust. Okay, you got to be a trustee on there. Okay, you got to be signed in or signed on to the trust. So my thing is this: if the government created the trust, the government created the trust for them. So for you to access it, it's not meant for you to access that trust like that. Okay. Am I saying that there's no way to discharge debt? No, I'm not saying there's no way to discharge debt. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that the way that they got it set up, where you trying to transmit your debt through your straw, is you. They got you thinking that you an exact corporate fiction like a corporation, and you really not. There are some fundamental things that is different, and you better off as a entity, like a corporate entity that you create, versus trying to manipulate an entity that the United States created for themselves, but they needed you to do it. They used you. That's the trickery. See, the sad thing is that they did use you and tricked you into allowing them to create a trust on them. Okay, so I do get all that. Okay, but I don't like. That's not for me. That's not what Noble Drew Ali was trying to do. Way of going about it, and that's because we being indigenous to the land and being brought over here and being a mix of that and being put together as one collective. Moors and indigenous people really have the same common strand, because Moors believe, like Noble Drew Ali, mother and them, they believe that they had Native American in them. So there's this native side that they cling to, and then he talk about the Moorish side, which is supposed to be Moroccans. So he's saying basically when he's using the word Moroccan, he's really talking about Africans, because that's North Africa. It's just, people don't look at North Africa as part of Africa. They kind of look at it as Arab, which is just Arabs that took over North Africa. That's all. Period. Okay? So, it's this big thing about that, but I'm just saying that the point of Moorish Temple was to uplift fallen humanity, to propagate temples, okay? That's what they were supposed to do. Did Noble Drew Ali have a trust? Yeah, he got a trust. Noble Drew Ali got a trust. That's what I'm saying. Like the Noble Drew Ali, he understood the whole system, but not in the way that we trying to do this. Like all of y'all out here trying to go individual. Y'all trying to be individuals. singular entities go out and trying to do these things in court and doing these things like squatting on the land and this and that and this and that. Like y'all going about it in the wrong way. Y'all putting yourselves on the line. You know what I'm saying? Albion, listen, Albions don't put themselves on the line. Jews don't put themselves on the line. They all have entities. They all have corporate entities, religious entities. Okay, see, and that's another thing, man. Like, like most melanated people don't really have their own religion, and that's a whole nother story, man. I ain't gonna get all in that tonight, hopefully, but I'm just saying, like, they're following the Moors. There are certain Moors that's coming into the fold who are really not centered on their self, like trying to understand knowledge of self. They're more into matrix without really understanding themselves. It's like Taj Tariq Bey. Taj Tariq Bey got knowledge of self. Taj Tariq Bey got knowledge of self. He's not like a, you know, he's been, like, I've been watching Taj Tariq on video, on VHS myself. When I first got into the organization, I was watching a videotape in 2001 of Taj Tariq that he had did back in like 91 or 92. Like, so Taj has put his he didn't put his soul and oats in the game for this, okay? He got a whole different knowledge of understanding than us out here. Like, I got sisters that would call me talking about they want to go pay their rent because they own the land. And I'm like, I get it. I definitely understand where you're coming from. But how is that going to work in courts? And it didn't work in court for her. It didn't work in court. Because you can't go around doing that. That's, it's just like, if you got agreements with the state, you need to sever your ties with the state on those principles. If you got driver's license and you talking about you sovereign or this and that, I mean, you really got to give them back. You need to give them back their license. Okay, you need to give them back all that stuff because most of us is in the system somehow. And the key really is to how we going to get out and how we got to understand that we're not going to get out in one day. Like, there's a systematic approach to it. You understand? So for us to just go wholeheartedly into the sovereign citizen movement, if I feel like once again the Albions are using us to facilitate what they want. Because at the end of the day, we join the sovereign citizens, we overthrow the government, then what? Like, then we're gonna be warring against the middle American. Because that's like I said, who's really the sovereign citizen coming out of? Middle America. Middle America has been exposed over the past 5-6 years due to Donald Trump's run for president and win. So we get to see how intelligent and how they think. And a lot of them, like come on, whether y'all believe the whole thing or not, but like the people who stormed the Capitol, those who stormed the Capitol, like they had Confederate flags waving in the Capitol. Okay, they the ones that ride around like that. To me, a lot of that is lack of ignorance. A lot of that is lack of ignorance on their behalf. Lack of knowledge, lack of understanding of certain things. Like, a lot of them are not educated. You know, think about Middle America. Middle America are the ones who, like, got a good, they get out of high school if they make it out, and then they get factory jobs. They was getting jobs that they mom at the plant that they mama worked. Y'all know what I'm talking about. We all been there. But Middle America, they were the staple of that. And they was able to get those jobs. So they looking like, why they can't get those jobs no more? Oh, because they not We in a different age of time, and those jobs are being and or being obsolete. So they lose these jobs, and Albions, man. Albions always blame somebody for the problem. So of course they blame dark skinned people, Mexican or so-called Latinos. They start blaming them. They start blaming so-called black. Okay, so, they looking at the president of the United States. He's half black, and they're looking at losing their country. That group of people, they stand on those what they call American principles. They all they know is the fairy tale of their country being born. The 1776, they coming in, fighting the British, that whole thing, not having any monarchies rule them, freedom of religion, they Christian, and they conservative, they fly with the conservative, and you understand the conservatives are have a religious backbone now. They can't really, you can't even be a conservative unless you side with certain Christian religious principles. You understand what I'm saying? So that group of people, that group, the Dixiecrats, all them niggas, those are the ones who started forming sovereignty movement. Those are the ones that formed the sovereignty movement. Those are the patriots, man. And like I said, they don't have melanated people's interests. Only if you can help benefit them. I mean, how often we do that? Man, we've been doing that for the past 400-500 years. We've been following under a certain group of people, trying to bandwagon and get on what they on. When melanated people lost their birthright, and they can use their birthright to resurrect their freedom, because that's what they took away in order to make you a certain way. That's what they took. Okay? For us to be 14th Amendment citizens, that's not the answer. Okay? What I'm saying is, the First Amendment, the Freedom of Reformation Act, the fact that religion is a key to freedom, a liberated mind with the power of religion can create a sovereign jurisdiction. Okay, I know it sounds like whatever, man, but I'm trying to tell you, like, using sovereign citizen principles, most of the time when you deal with a police officer. Now, I've seen some video, shout out to them. I have seen some brothers who can show that they ain't been stopped by the police, or when they were stopped by the police, that they weren't arrested, that the police officer let them go. I have seen videos like that. Like I said, I've been in the game. I have seen some, what I call glimpses of light in the movement. Okay, I have seen it. I do believe that it's happened from time to time, but I don't think that that's a tactic that can be used just throughout the United States in every city, that it's going to work, because police officers are not trained to deal with any of that. Think about it, they're the lowest educated on the totem pole of criminal justice, and they really just do what they're told. They go out and do what they're told. That's it. They're not lawyers. They don't really know what to do. And in a situation where sometimes when a brother or a sister uses these rules against them, they don't really know. And for them, they if it's not what we was told, we gonna give you a ticket. You ain't got the ID we need? Oh, okay, we're going to give you a ticket. Basically, you're going to have to take that up with the judge because I'm going to do this. That's the principle of a police officer. So for us to be out here saying these things and dealing with the police officers in that manner, it's not really necessarily the way. Now, do you have rights dealing with the police officer? Of course you got rights dealing with the police officer. Of course we got rights. But I'm saying if we out here like we not under this rule regulation because we are more, that's not gonna give you the answer you need. You know. But now my thing is this. What if you was a Moorish American with your status? And you coming from a religious standpoint. Like you a Moorish American Muslim. Okay. And you under the temple, Moorish Science Temple of America, a religious institution, you have certain religious exemptions. You have certain religious exemptions. Like, can an officer really stop you if you on your way to a temple or not? If you doing religious work, they don't have jurisdiction over that. The First Amendment has given the right that you have the right to your religion, and if your religion deems something that may even go against the state, that becomes an issue. That becomes an issue. Haven't you guys seen, like, you go to a BMV, y'all go to get your driver's license, and you gotta take your hat off, right? But when I wear my fez, or when I wear my kufi, and I go and say, no, this religious instruments, they allow me to do what I gotta do because they cannot interfere with religious principles unless it has vested interest or can damage the federal government. If it can damage the federal government, but most of this stuff, like this stuff, traffic tickets, the stuff that they be doing sovereignty on, credit card debt. Like they be stealing cars and be getting charged with weed or some kind of hardcore stuff. Like they get caught up in that, they get caught up in murder, and then they want to claim nationality or religion. Like though there are certain things that are off limits. Like it don't matter what your nationality is. Like I don't care what your nationality is. If you kill somebody, like I was telling a brother earlier, like if you sovereign and you running around here without no your car has got a different place on it, which is no problem. Because like I said, we do plates. You know what I mean? Like we do religious plate. We do religious plates. You know what I'm saying? But let's say you got a car and you got religious plates on it, or whatever. And if you come in there talking about I'm going for religious purposes, I've been going back and forth on my religious duties. They have a deeper understanding of First Amendment rights. Like the police officers understand First Amendment rights. They understand that because they come in contact with religious entities, religious organizations all the time. That is common. That is something that is established in the society. So yes, they do recognize or look at religious exemptions with a different regard than they would somebody talking about, I'm sovereign, I'm a Moorish national. Because at the end of the day, the problem with the Moorish nationals is there's no centralized place in order to get what you need. There's no centralized authority that will allow you to allow that communication with the federal government or with the local government. There's no entity to do that. The Moorish Science Temple of America, they don't do that. But if anybody should be able to do it, would be them. Because as a sheikh, see, like the thing about it, as a sheik or as a religious, like a minister, babalawo, imam, any of those religious people have a congregation, have a group of people that are under them that that follow under in their temple. They got a right to, if something happens, that they can call their minister. They can call these people and have them talk. See, that's religion though. That's religion. And I'm saying like that's what needs to be set up beyond, but it got to go beyond the church. We ain't talking about how the church do it. The church, they give you a glimpse of what they can do. Because hell, churches run around here buying up buildings and all that stuff, right? The churches run around here buying up these buildings and setting up stuff. They showing you that as a religious entity, I can gobble up stuff. I can create these businesses. But like I said, where the church go wrong because they done got tied in with the 501c3 and whatnot, there are certain things that they can't do. Like those ministers, like if you got a church and you a minister and you marrying somebody, they gonna make you get a minister license. So when now you got a minister license, you subjugated to the state law as a minister. So now you the contracted back with the state with a minister license. You see what I'm saying? So now you bound to their rules. So now these Christian ministers or whatever is talking about, well, I can't marry you unless you get a license from your county. You gotta get a marriage license. I can't marry you. The state won't allow me. You'd be like, well, ain't you doing this for God? We doing this in the witnesses of God, but they doing it in the witness of the state too. Because when they get married, don't they say, in the power invested in me and the state of wherever they at, I pronounce you man and wife. They all tying yourself back in that way. That's where they went wrong. That's where the church went wrong. But like I said, the church being since its beginning conception, it was created by the El-Amin to control the melanated people in the community. So it's always been like that. That's why you can't go but so far. That's why they don't go that far. You saw the Nation of Islam and the more do way more as far as using their jurisdiction than the church do, than the church has. Okay? I mean, and I mean the reason is because they are thinking more outside, independent of the state. You know, those people, the people who were running the Moorish Science Temple at back like Noble Drew Ali, Marcus Garvey, they was thinking outside the state. They was like, man, the hell with the state. We gon', where now most of those people, most of the ministers, like I said, T.G. Snakes and all them, like they 501c3, they part of the system, they Christian, so they already not gonna go so far, and that's just what it is. That's why you don't see that. That's why you don't see it. That's why you see all these churches buying on stuff, and they really don't do nothing for the community. It don't really do nothing like it should. And I'm not trying to bash the church like that, but we all know what it is, man. And all I'm saying is that instead of you focusing so much energy on trying to get money through your accounts from the government, okay? Instead of you trying to do that, why don't we build our own stuff instead of trying to get stuff out the straw man? You're trying to get stuff out of the straw man. You're trying to get something out of the entity that they created. They ain't even there. Ain't even there. Like it's all based off of a promise, a promissory note. So none of this stuff is even real. You know what I'm saying? The key really is not to be sovereign and mixing in with another group. The key is to create a religious organizations that are not part of the system, which is what Noble Drew Ali was trying to do. at the time. Like he broke away from Christianity because if you a Christian, you under the Christian jurisdiction. You under the Pope jurisdiction. Because you understand when this new world, so-called new world of North America and the Americas, who was the first to come over here? Under what name did they come under? Christopher Columbus sailed under the Catholic Church. If you weren't a Christian, oh, you was a heathen. Oh, we can enslave you. So the whole premise was if you're not Christian, then you're not in that you can be subjugated to being below human. So yeah, they put you in a Christian jurisdiction. If you think I'm lying, like think about your name. Everybody out here got a Christian name. Your name is a Christian name. They automatically just assume, oh, you black, you American, oh, okay. What's your Christian name? Because you're a Christian. If you're not, your name is still Christian because they named you as a Christian. You didn't take that step and create your own affidavit of live birth and specify that this is not a Christian name. You ain't do that. You got a birth certificate, presumably from the hospital, and knowing that the hospitals are all ran by churches. Think about it. All the churches run the hospitals. They got Catholic names to them. You understand? Because they understood that Christianity put a certain jurisdiction on you if you were melanated. So I think Noble Drew Ali understood that, and he tried to bring Islamism to the fold, which was a different religion. And he saw that Islam was outside of Catholic jurisdiction. Okay. So he tried to bring that jurisdiction into the fold, which he did. But what that really taught me was that Noble Drew Ali was trying to show you that you got to come out of that religious Christianity fold and try to come under another form of religion. Okay? You got to come up with a different form of religion that's yours. So like for us, like we got the Holy Ancestral Covenant. This really right here is a covenant, man. This is a covenant that we made with the ancestors. This is supposed to be like our trust, if you will, with our ancestors. Okay? Because, hell, man, we in a new age. Most of us is waking up. We not Christian no more. Man, you know how many people I see on Facebook with these different names? With all these, you know what I'm saying? Jehudi, Amin Ra'el, and I'm not. All this is showing me is that we waking up. That we no longer being on the Christian. That's all that's showing me. And because we waking up, we not being Christian. But what are we really being? Like we being spiritual. But spirituality doesn't have law. Doesn't have law behind it. Religion does. Okay. I'm gonna get off, man, but I'm gonna make my run again. This is one more example. I don't know if y'all have seen this before, but I was watching a video today, and it was talking about this prophet called Ra'el. Now, y'all in the conscious community, subconscious community, y'all heard of this before, but this dude named Ra'el, he got this organization that's in different countries. It's deep into Africa, in the poorest part of Africa, and it's in Japan, and of course in America. But he's from I think France or something, right? But he created this organization. He's saying that he was picked by the El-Amin, okay, and was told certain things, and that he was created from the Elohim, and that he has the power to know about cloning, and that we've been misled in the world about all the religions, and that he's just another prophet. Now, I'm saying this because the brother, he's not a brother, he's Albion. This Albion has had he created these hospitals in Africa, okay, to help women with the mutilation, like women being mutilated, the clitoris manipulation or mutilation. He had hospitals set up to help reverse that. So this dude running around here talking about he was from the Elohim, and he got close to 100,000 followers. Believe in this. The power that this man yield. And I was just watching this today, and I remember this dude been doing this for about 30, 40 years. A prophet. He's been a prophet for 40 years and been able to get it off. He's got money, everything. He got everything he wants. Fame, all that. And I'm saying he did it through a religious institution. Okay? So for me, seeing what I mean with different religious people, the key really is for you to create an entity, become the prophet of it, and create a religious entity around that. And this goes for all of y'all. If y'all got your houses, if you got a house, you should have a shrine in that house, right? Or place of privacy, right? And that house, your house is your temple. So you are always coming and going from your temple. So when you out and about, you traveling under religious pretense. You should always be in your religious mindset because you're spiritual. But I'm telling you, going in the court saying that you're spiritual don't mean anything. You could go in court and say, I'm wearing this headdress because it's spiritual. And they'll be like, that doesn't have any holding in my courtroom. We don't have spirituality in the Constitution. We have religion in the Constitution. You understand? We got religion. So what I'm saying is, y'all, we got to use the religions that we have to shield us from everything, to shield us from law, to be exempt, not pay taxes. Why? Because I'm religiously exempt. If I'm traveling, you know what I'm saying? Like these are really legal remedy to like not having to pay taxes, and not because you are a religious entity. Okay, you are a religious entity, and like I said, where I'm at, out of the temple of New Kemet, the temple of New Kemet is following in the footsteps of Noble Drew Ali. Okay, we following in the footsteps of Noble Drew Ali because we're taking the foundation of what he was doing, and we are basically updating it in a sense because, I talk about this all the time. Like Noble Drew Ali created his own religion and made himself the prophet, and because of that, I got to give props to that. But he was giving you a blueprint of how it's being done. You created prophet. That show I was just talking about with that guy Rael, he made himself a prophet. He's a prophet because he went up into the heavens in the spaceship and went to their land and seen all this and that and blah blah blah. So that makes him special. He's a prophet. That you have to be made. You create an entity. You make yourself do things that are great works, and to be honored. Okay. Now what we do is because we got ancestors, and these ancestors, like Noble Drew Ali, or Malcolm X, or Harriet Tubman, Ashe to all those. Like those people would be our religious foundation for us as ancestors, you know. And that's the thing. A lot of us are coming back into our ancestral knowledge. Those are the keys. The sovereign citizenship movement, like I said, that's for them. That's for them Albions. That's for them so-called white boys, man. That's what that really. That's what that really is, for real. They the ones that's really doing that for real. There's there's a lot to learn from the sovereign citizen movement. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say that I didn't learn nothing from studying that stuff. I'm not gonna say that at all. I mean, you can find a lot of their understanding in my literature, the books that I've written. But as I've evolved over time, even from that point, I began to see the power of religion, taking your spirituality and putting it into religious form gets you in less heat and more protection than a sovereign citizen would. And that's the thing, man. It's like for us to just embrace like who we are, to embrace who we are and be organized in that and be able to stand on those principles from a legal stance. Like, look, this is our way of life, our rites of passage, our religious rights. Like we have certain principles that we can stand on and fight legally and have a much better leg to stand on in the argument than we could talking about we sovereign citizens. Because at the end of the day, none of those sovereign citizens hardly got any help outside of themselves. Like once you get caught up, you don't have a centralized sovereign citizen government that's gonna come in your behalf and say, "Hey, you got one of our guys in jail, and we need to negotiate something about it." You don't have that. You know, brother, talking about if we get in trouble, you got to go to a consulate. Well, where is a consulate that you can actually call up and get the help you need? There's very few brothers doing that, and if they are doing it, it's such on a small scale that it's not big like a national. It's not on a national level. You understand what I'm saying? They're all individualized. So, I mean, I'm just saying, man. These are my thoughts, man. But I'm gonna get up off of here, y'all. Please, like I said, subscribe, like the video. I appreciate everybody been on and off on here. I'm gonna keep dropping these jewels. Check out the other videos. Check out some of the books that I got under Bandele, El-Amin. Check me out on Amazon. I'm gonna have it in the link when it's done. And I'm gonna catch y'all later. Until then, tutanana.